Chinese women who actually as well fought before. This was back in 2014, in which Marina Moras won via an armbar while in the first round while fighting in XFC. So Marina Moras has a bit of height difference. Look at the win percentage. So Silva does like to go for the finish. Significant strikes, Marina Moras edges out the landed per minute, but also has an increased absorb per minute too, and has got the grappling. So Silva does like to go for the takedowns in the fights. So, like I said, Marina Moras actually won the first bout back in 2014. But since then, I think Silva has got a lot more experience and a lot more time in the cage, and has really improved on his skills. And for that reason, I'm taking Silva to win. The next fight is in the women's flyweight division again, and this is Andrea Lee versus Natalia Silva. Andrea Lee is a 13th ranked flyweight. She's currently on a 2-fight losing streak though, and her last loss came to the hands of Macy Barber, but that was via split decision. She's had 10 fights in the UFC, and she has some notable wins over people like Veronica Hardy, Antonia Shevchenko, who's Valentina Shevchenko's sister, and also Cynthia Calvillo. On the other hand, Natalia Silva, she isn't a UFC veteran, but she is currently rocking a 9-fight win streak. 3 of them in the UFC, and 2 of those victories came by way of KO or TKO. Okay, so looking into this, so Andrea is 13-7, Natalia Silva is 15-5. Andrea has the height advantage. Okay, so Natalia Silva doesn't go to decision as much as Andrea Lee, has a shorter average fight time, significant strikes. Okay, both fairly similar, but she doesn't absorb many. She doesn't absorb many strikes at all, after the grappling. Okay, she got really good defense. Yeah, Natalia Silva has extremely good takedown defense, and she'll need that because Andrea Lee does like to go for some takedowns and does have a higher takedown accuracy. However, with all things considered, I think Natalia Silva is on the rise, and I think Natalia Silva is going to get the decision on this fight. Oops. Next fight is a middleweight bout, and this is between Andrei Petrovski and Gerald Meerschaert. So, looking at this. So, Andrei Petrovski is 9-2, and 4 of those 9 wins has come inside the octagon in the UFC. He did rise to prominence, Andrei Petrovski, during his appearance on the Ultimate Fighter Season 29, in which he did lose to the eventual winner, Brian Powell. It was only classed as an exhibition fight though, so it doesn't officially go on his record, but it might be on his record on here. In his 4 fights inside the UFC though, that he's won, 3 of them has been finishes. Gerald Meerschaert on the other hand is a veteran. Look how many fights he's got. He's got over 50 fights. 18 of those has been in the UFC, and 10 of those 18 fights Petrovski is a young, hungry fighter, almost like a younger, more athletic version of Gerald at the moment. And for that reason, I'm going to go with Andrei Petrovski for the win. And so that was the early prelims of the night. We then move on to the prelims. The first fight on the prelims is a Ultimate Fighter finale in the bantamweight division, and it's Brad Katona versus Cody Gibson. Okay, so Brad Katona's 14-2, and he's currently running a 4-fight win streak, which has come in the Brave promotion. So he wasn't fighting for the UFC, he was fighting for the Brave promotion. He has previously been in the UFC though, where he's been 2-2, so 2 wins, 2 losses. But he did win the Ultimate Fighter season 27. Cody Gibson on the other hand, he's 20-8. He had 4 fights as well in the UFC, but he lost 3 of those foes. 3 of the 4 fights that he had in the UFC, and that was back in 2015. Since then, though, he's fought in a variety of promotions, and his latest fight being in the UNF promotion, where he won via a arm triangle choke in the 3rd round. Like I said, this is an Ultimate Fighter finale. Both of these were initially coached by Michael Chandler. However, Brad Katona is fighting out of SBG in Ireland, so he switched sides to go to Conor McGregor's side. From what I hear, Conor McGregor isn't going to be in attendance, but I'd be shocked if Michael Chandler misses out. I think Michael Chandler will be there. So that's the bantamweight bout. But as you all know, that in the Ultimate Fighter there's usually 2 divisions that competes, and the other division is a lightweight division, and that is Austin Hubbard versus Kurt Holobaugh. So I'm not very familiar with Kurt at all. I've heard of Austin Hubbard before. Austin Hubbard was in the UFC prior, and he was 3-4 in the UFC, with this last fight in the UFC in 2021, I believe. Since then, though, he has racked a 2-fight winning streak, so that earned him a shot back into the Ultimate Fighter to earn a chance to fight for the UFC again. On the other hand, Kurt Holobaugh is 20-7, and 4 of those 7 defeats came in the UFC. He's 0-4 in the UFC. However, since he left the UFC, he's also on a 2-fight win streak and won both of those fights via KO. So Kurt Holobaugh likes to get most of his fights won, in his own hands. He doesn't like to leave it to the judges. Austin Hubbard, most of his fights, in terms of percentage-wise, goes to the judges. So Kurt does actually see his skull on the cut. It was on the bridge of his nose. You could see like his cartilage or artery, and also like you could see his skull. It was one of the worst cuts I've ever seen in my life. It made me feel sick. But that happened in the first round. He didn't give up. He came back out in the second round and got a TKO. Crazy. Dennis Dewey, on the other hand, has only had 3 fights in UFC, where he's 1 and 2, so he's won only 1 and lost 2. His only win came against Jamie Pickett, who actually coincidentally fought last week. His last fight, however, was against Jun Young Park, where he did lose via a rear naked choke in round 1. Okay, so when Dennis Doolin gets the win, it's via TKO. So, to be fair, Gregory Rodriguez as well, a lot of his percentages of via KO, TKO, but he does like to go for a submission as well. So a significant strike. So Gregory Rodriguez does throw more or land more per minute and absorb a little bit less. The grappling aspect, Gregory Rodriguez has 100% takedown defense, 50% takedown accuracy, and 2.2 takedown averages per 50 minutes. Yeah, so looking at these stats, and just knowing how tough Gregory Rodriguez is, I'm going to pick Gregory Rodriguez to win this fight. And then the feature prelim bout of the night, the comeback king, Chris Weidman versus Brad Tavares. In 2013, Chris Weidman was ranked as the number 1 fighter in the world, where he beat the then GOAT Anderson Silva twice to become and then retain the World Middleweight Championship. He also made 2 other defenses of the middleweight belt, and those came against Lyoto Machida and Vita Belfort, before eventually losing the belt to Luke Rockhold. Since losing to Luke Rockhold, though, he's lost 5 of 7 fights, and probably the worst fight he's had, which everyone probably knows, is his last fight, which was against Uriah Hall, where he snapped his leg from throwing a kick within the first 20 seconds of the fight. It was crazy. So that's Chris Weidman. Brad Tavares, on the other hand, he's a 22 fight UFC veteran. So he's had 22 fights in UFC. 14 of those 22 fights he has come via win. So he's won 14 of those fights. He is, however, on a 2-fight loss streak. And those losses came to the hands of Dricus du Plessis and Bruno Silva, so high prospects in the division. Chris Weidman has a slight height advantage, but does have a significant reach advantage. Chris Weidman has a better KO and sub ratio than Brad Tavares. They throw or land pretty much the same per minute and absorb pretty much the same per minute. And looking at grappling, Brad Tavares has decent takedown defense, but Chris Weidman is an all-American wrestler. He's very good. He's one of the best wrestlers in the middleweight division. So, the clear path to victory for Chris Weidman is there. It's there for everyone to see. So, I would expect Chris Weidman to use and utilize his wrestling to beat Tavares. And yeah, I think that's exactly what's going to happen. I think Chris Weidman is going to have a coming out party, and he's going to out-wrestle, out-grapple, and outwork Brad Tavares. And Chris Weidman is going to get the win. And that will set us off to the main card. The his own. He's had 19 fights in UFC. His record inside UFC is 10 wins, 7 losses and 2 draws. Or 2 non-contests. He's currently ranked 10th in the world. His last fight was a win over emerging prospect Chris Gutierrez. And prior to that, it was a no contest against the one half of the main event of the evening, which is Sean O'Malley, and there was a no contest because of a eye poke. Look at the win percentages. Chito Vera doesn't like to go to decision very much. Neither does Petro Munhoz. Petro Munhoz has significant power. He's a hard hitter, but utilises that to get people in trouble, and then he goes for the submission. Marlon Vera, like I said, 2 of his last 4 wins has come via, like a kick KO. So you can see he has power in his legs. He also finished Sean O'Malley. It was a controversial stoppage. Sean O'Malley hurt his foot or his leg in that fight, but he finished him nevertheless. Marlon Vera for me is the one to go for, and he's the favourite. He does land less per minute, but absorbs less per minute too. The grappling is very similar. Petro Munhoz has a better takedown defense, but Chito Vera has double the takedown accuracy. I think this could be a finish, I think Chito Vera could get the finish in this fight. So that's what I'm predicting. Next we have a bantamweight bout, and this is Blackshear versus Mario Bautista. Mario Bautista was actually originally scheduled to fight Cody Garbrandt, but Cody Garbrandt had to pull out, so in stepped on a week's notice Blackshear. And I say a week's notice because his last fight actually came last week, where he won against Jose Johnson in the first round via a twister. I think he was only the 3rd twister in UFC history, and it was his 2nd win in UFC in 4 fights. But he is coming up against Mario Bautista, so his record is 12-2. He was 6-0 coming into UFC, and since being in UFC, he's gone 6-2. He is though currently riding a 4-fight win streak, and he is looking to extend that against Blackshear. Both of them have very similar stats here. Don't really like to go for the TKO. Usually finishes via submission, and only goes to decision about a quarter of the time. Mario Bautista does throw and land more per minute, and absorb per minute is very similar from the both. Grappling aspects, Mario Bautista does look to take down a lot more than Blackshear. His takedown accuracy is actually better than Blackshear, and his takedown defense as well is better than Blackshear. This is only telling me one thing, that if we look at the win by percentages, they like to go for submissions. Mario Bautista seems like a better grappler and submission artist than Blackshear. Although Blackshear, credit to him, had a twister finish last week. He's come off a week's notice. He's just cut weight last week. He's got to cut weight again this week. It's going to be hard on him. I think Mario Bautista has got this fight in the bag. And then we move on to a welterweight bout, which is between 11th ranked Neil Magny against number 13th ranked Ian Garry. Ian Garry is a minus 500 favourite. 11th ranked Neil Magny, he's had 30 fights in UFC with 21 wins and 9 losses. does have some notable wins over people like Jeff Neal, Robbie Lawler, Carlos Condit, Johnny Hendricks, Hector Lombard. All these are legends in the game. His last fight was a split decision win over Phil Rowe. Phil Rowe is a big guy. I thought Phil Rowe was going to beat Neil Magny, but Neil Magny probably did do just enough, but he was very grapple heavy, boring fighting. Ian Garry, on the other hand, nothing is boring about Ian Garry. He's 12-0, ranked 13th in the world. He is one of the most highly rated prospects in the UFC. 5 of those victories has been in the UFC, and 3 of those 5s has been way of KO. His last fight was against Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod, and he beat D-Rod via head kick to ground strikes within the first round. This is an amazing fight. It's a big step up in experience and levels. Neil Magny, he's a crafty guy, very good at submission, very good grappling, crafty on the feet sometimes as well. So it's going to be the case of, can Ian Garry control his distance really well? Can he, he does have the shorter reach, so he needs to be in and out, in and out. Neil Magny likes to be very close in, grapple against the fence, trip up on the floor, be a bit boring, but grind out a victory. Ian Garry, however, as you can see, 58% of his fights have become via KO of TKO, whereas nearly 60% of Neil Magny's fights have come by way of a decision. And you can just see the reasons why here. Ian Garry lands nearly 7 strikes per minute compared to Neil Magny's 3.5. He does also absorb nearly double the amount of strikes as Neil Magny as well. Grappling wise, Neil Magny 2.3 takedown averages per 50 minutes compared to Ian Garry's 0.3. So yeah, you can see where both fighters would want the fight to go. However, Ian Garry is Irish. He's got Celtic blood. I can't back against him. I'm going to go with Ian Garry with a finish. And then we'll move on to the co-main event of the evening. This is the women's strawweight title bout against the champion Zhang Weili from China, and number 5th ranked Amanda Lemos from Brazil. So Weili Zhang, she's 7-2 in the UFC, 23-3 overall, and she's a two-time UFC strawweight champion. The only 2 losses that Weili Zhang has in the UFC is against Rose Namajunas. She's currently ranked number 1 for the best female strawweight, and also ranked number 1 for the best pound-for-pound female MMA fighter on the planet at the moment. She's on a 2-fight win streak that included a spinning back fist KO over Hall of Fame Joanna Jędrzejczyk, and most recently a rear naked choke over 2-time UFC champion Carla Esparza. On the other hand, Amanda Lemos has less experience in the cage. She's 13-1. 9 of those fights, though, has come in the UFC, and she's gone 7-2 in the UFC. She lost her first fight in the UFC before going on a 5-fight win streak, and then only losing for the second time against Jessica Andrade. Since that loss, though, she's gone on a 2-fight winning streak over Michelle Waterson Gomez and Marina Rodriguez, which has earned her a shot at the coveted UFC strawweight title. Okay, so Amanda Lemos does have a little bit of a reach advantage. Look at the win percentages, 62% BKO for Amanda Lemos. Both fighters, though, doesn't really like to go also accuracy and defense is not much difference either. I guess just looking at this like analytically, and from watching the UFC for a fairly long time, I do think that Zhang Weili does have a little bit too much for Amanda Lemos right now. Of course, Amanda Lemos is strong, she's powerful. Yes, she could knock out Zhang Weili. But if we're looking at skill for skill, grappling, striking, the transitions, speed, I think Zhang Weili has got this, and that's going to be my pick. I think it's going to be, and still, Zhang Weili. And once that's done, once Zhang Weili retains the belt, we will then move on to the main event of the evening in Boston. And it's Aljomain Sterling, the champion, versus Sean O'Malley. Okay. So Aljomain Sterling is a fairly big favourite, -258. He is the current bantamweight champion. He is riding a 9-fight win streak after getting brutally KO'd by Moras via knee back in 2017 in the first round. I actually think that Aljomain Sterling might be the most underrated fighter / definitely the most underrated champion that UFC has. He's so good. He has ridiculous grappling. He's not very good to watch in terms of he's quite boring. But his his grappling ability and like how quickly he takes the back and how good he can control people from on the back, he's a nightmare for anyone. Suga Sean O'Malley though, he's 16-1, and maybe apart from his Real Adesanya, he might be the most popular fighter since Conor McGregor. He does have a real significant presence on the social media, and a lot of that is because of like how he looks. He got the tattoos, he got the coloured hair, he says some funky things, but I think people overlooked a lot of the reasons why he's got so big. It's because a lot of his fights has been highlight reel worthy, either by crazy KOs, just complete dominance. Sean O'Malley is a real one. So, I think it'll be a closer fight than the odds maybe suggests. It literally will come down to, can Sean O'Malley keep it on the feet, keep the distance long, or will Aljomain Sterling get the takedown pretty easily and keep Sean O'Malley there? Win percentage, Aljomain Sterling only 13%, KO ratio, not very good. Sean O'Malley on the other hand, 73% KO, so you can see which one is a bit more of a fan favourite. Aljomain Sterling, 52% of his wins comes via decision. Only 20% of Suga Sean O'Malley's wins have been via decision. A significant strike, look at the landed per minute. Suga Sean O'Malley nearly 7.5 significant strikes landed per minute, with a percentage significant strikes of 60%. He absorbs 3.5 as well, so he's a very exciting fighter to watch. Whereas Aljomain Sterling lands less, but also does absorb a little bit less as well. Grappling, Aljomain Sterling does like to utilise the takedown averages, especially look at that against Sean O'Malley. He's going to be going for them. However, his takedown accuracy isn't that good, and also his takedown defense isn't as good. So it'll be interesting to see how the grappling actually plays out, because Sean O'Malley is a very good grappler. He just never has to show it because he's such a good striker. I like both people. Like I said, I think Aljomain Sterling is one of the most underrated champions in UFC. But I've ridden with Sean O'Malley since day dot. Since in the Contender series, where Snoop Dogg was going, O'Malley, O'Malley. is my picks for this weekend's UFC card in Boston. I'm so excited. I hope you're excited. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. I can't sleep already. And with that being said, I'm wishing every single one of